You are listening to Jambo Radio Scotland, online, on your smart speakers and on DAB digital radio in Edinburgh and Glasgow. You can download the Jambo Radio app on Google Play and App Store. Now, it's time for our conversations with inspirational individuals in Scotland and beyond. This is a moment with Sade and Enoch.
Hello and welcome to Moments with Sade and Enoch on Jambo Radio. My name is Enoch and I'm here with my co-host Sade and our guest Dami.
Hi everyone.
Hiya. Fantastic. On today's show, we'll be talking about the intricacies of navigating a successful career. Intricacies, that sounds like a very tough word. I think Sade came up with that. Why not join in the conversation? You can do this by calling the studio directly on 0141 530 2787. So that's 0141 530 2787. Or you can send us a WhatsApp message or voice note on 074 599 06822.
Yeah, and if you're on social media, you can also message us on Facebook at Jambo Radio Scotland, on Twitter at Jambo Radio 1, and on Instagram at jamboradio.scotland.
You can also email us at info@jamboradio.co.uk. So really, you've got so many ways to get in touch with us. So we are open to hear from some of you this evening. Send us your comments. We'd like to hear your subject of career navigation. If you've got stories to share, if you've got something inspirational to share, or even if you've got some
horror stories.
Some horror stories as well. We would love to hear from you. I've got some myself, so hopefully Dami will give me an opportunity to share my stories as well. If you haven't yet, you can download the Jambo Radio app, which is available on both Apple and Android. Right. So let's get cracking. Let's get into it. I'm sure Dami is thinking, right, when are you going to start asking me the question? So Dami, do you want to, our listeners are thinking, with Dami, do you want to introduce yourself without talking about what you do for work for 1 minute?
Yeah.
So Sade is timing you.
1 minute. Okay, let's try this.
Clock starts now.
Now, so I am a family man. I am passionate about Manchester United. I love football. Football since the beginning. It's been a painful couple. I was going to say painful season, but it's been a painful decade. I'm enjoying sports. I do enjoy cycling. I've just recently gotten involved in the gym, and I kind of am enjoying that now. I'm actually going there after this as well because it's become routine now for me, which is good. I don't have like favorite meals, favorite songs, favorite really anything. I don't even have like favorite car or anything. I just try and take it as easy as I can. To the point in which my wife might actually call that lazy, but she's not here, so I'm not lazy. She's not here.
But I hope you have a favorite woman.
Oh, 100%. Oh, yeah, of course, officially.
You can't not have favorite anything. You're going to get in trouble.
Yeah, thanks for that. No, definitely, yeah.
Okay, that's good to know. Well, I've got favorite so many things as well. I think I'm like the opposite of you. I'm quite extreme. I've got my favorite food. I've got my favorite type of clothing. But anyway, we won't go into that. Can you just tell our listeners what were you doing before relocating to the UK?
Oh, I was a student for a while. I was a student in Nigeria. I grew up in Nigeria. I grew up in Lagos, Nigeria. I actually started in First Act in Ikeja. Eventually went towards the Ikorodu side of things as well. So I was a student for a couple of years, and I worked with my mom for about a year before relocating for my master's. And this is way back in 2007. Wow,
interesting. I grew up in Ikorodu myself. Yes, all my life I grew up in Ikorodu and then came into the UK 2012, fresh from Ikorodu. So we have that in common, so that's good to know. And so what in terms of, so you came to the UK, you've answered that, but so for you, is it just more like you came to study? It wasn't because of, that was just it. It was just because of study. There was nothing else attached to it in terms of probably you had someone here you wanted to come and join, or nothing drove that.
Or running from someone.
No, I don't have that story. I wish it would have made my life a bit more exciting.
All right. Okay.
No, but it was just for study. To be perfectly honest, I kind of fell in love in the UK like a couple of years before. So almost about 8 years before actually relocating. The first I think falling in love is a bit extreme, but it was more of a curiosity at first. And then I'd come here a few times, and I was like, okay, I could be here. And then I went to Aberystwyth in Wales, which is like a really small town. There's not much that happens. There's a uni there now. There's always been a University of Wales, but it used to be University of Aberystwyth. And I just fell in love with that town, and I was sure the rest of, because when you go to London, you have a very different experience than when you go to a small town. So when I went to this small town, I was sure that I was going to have the best experience, and so it's been different. That was the genesis of it, and then education, obviously.
All right. Oh, that's interesting. I think the further we go into this conversation, I'm seeing some similarities. I came to study as well, just because of that. And so for the early years,
I think you're letting Dami off easily.
Okay.
So going back to your Nigerian story, you grew up in Nigeria.
Yeah.
So paint a picture for us, because there are different ways of growing up in Nigeria. You could grow up privileged, you could grow up like really hustling. So where are you on that? So if privilege is 10 and really hustling is 1, where are you on that,
on that scale?
On that scale.
I'm on a sliding scale. I'll put it down.
That is cheating.
I'm on a sliding scale. So when I was born, my parents were broke. So my parents were like flat broke. They had nothing. They didn't have a flat. They didn't have nothing. They'd gotten married. My brother was alive. We actually lived for Nigerians, they will understand this. We lived in the boys' quarters of my cousin's house. So my cousin was actually around for Christmas. It was the boys' quarters we lived in then. So she was around for Christmas. So we lived there for not too long, actually. I think maybe the first 2 years. Just 2 years. And then after that, my mom got a job. My mom was working, and we moved to Ikeja for a while. Started to get a bit of money. They decided they wanted to build their own place. As you can imagine, in Lagos, renting is expensive, and so we moved into that space. They started to do well or better financially, and things started to kind of progress. And as we started to grow up, they kind of got into this space again where things kind of went in a different direction again. So they had their own conflicts within themselves. My dad had his own company, my mom joined the company. There's a long story there, but it kind of went from, being very broke, having enough money, parents were traveling. I went to private school after a while to go into a point in which they then started to struggle again. And so things kind of went into a different direction again. So it's not really you always had or you never had. It's been in both sides of the conversation.
I see. Okay.
And which would you prefer to have?
Not to come on, Enoch, can you just ask that?
No, some people would prefer to just...
Yeah, you're right, actually.
Oh, really?
I had this
I'm yet to meet anyone who
so I had this conversation with my wife as well. So she's been in a position where she had and then she didn't have. And sometimes it sounds like she's preferred not having, because there was clarity, there was peace of mind, but there was also Christianity and God and all of that in that conversation as well.
Okay.
For me, there's not even a question.
For me as well. Maybe our listeners can also tell us what they think in terms of to have or to have not. For me, it's to have. It's just easier. It's more comfortable. Like
you mean Sade to have rather than just to have.
Okay, let's not go there. Okay, I'll just so there's something we want to ask Dami as well. In terms of your early years here in the UK, how did you go about kicking off your career? Like, how did you start? Because we all have our stories.
With a lot of naivety, delusion, and hope, right? I put it in that way. So when I came here, because I studied psychology originally, I came here, I worked in care. I didn't actually know what care was. So I came in and Aberdeen. So I went to University of Aberdeen. I did an MBA there. Aberdeen social care professionals came in and they were talking about this work, and it was social care, and I thought it was psychology. I thought it was related to psychology. So I was like, God. Oh yeah, I get to use my degree. I didn't know.
Finally,
it was finally. I didn't think I would ever get to use it, right? And then I joined the care industry. I didn't know what it was. The first day, that was a big eye opener. And I walked in there for a while. So there was a lot of, like I said, a lot of naivety about what I was getting involved in. I also kind of fell in love with Aberystwyth. I mentioned this earlier. Aberdeen is not Aberystwyth at all, right?
So Aberystwyth?
Aberystwyth, it's trust the Welsh to have long names.
Okay, it's the first time I'm hearing that name as well.
So it used to be University of Aberystwyth, but it's not. It's University of Wales now. So
right. Okay.
So Aberdeen is nothing like that at all. And so it was cold, it was grey, there was no colours, like there was no colours. And sometimes the places where I had to go walk was like really far away as well. And it's really funny because I didn't actually know that when I got an MBA, I wasn't actually accepted for an MBA. For a postgraduate diploma with a view to transfer to an MBA.
All right, okay.
So it wasn't until about after 8 months of the course, and I got a letter from the university saying, "Congratulations, you now qualify to continue for an MBA." I was like, "What? What are you talking about? This is not what I was here for."
Just as well you qualify. You didn't qualify.
I was like, what? I didn't know this was even in contention.
Thank you.
Okay. But yeah, so there was a lot of hope, a lot of naivety, a lot of aspirations as well, because, and I say naivety because you come here and you think, oh, once I get a master's I'll get a professional job, and that's the trajectory, you go, oh yeah, as soon as I start 30 something grand, first of all, that's the entry level, that's the minimum I'm accepted. And then obviously reality kind of hits in a bit that it doesn't really work that way. And so you kind of have to adjust your goals.
Calm down. in Rema's voice. Indeed. Calm down. Yeah, true, very true. Yeah, I think I can relate to that very much as well. Especially when you come with a lot of experience from your country, you just think with that experience and, masters is like an icing on the cake for you, and then things should just go like snap, snap, snap. And then, UK humbles you, you just become, I did plate waiting for a start. That was my story. But anyway, it's about you today. It's all about Dami. You were talking about the horror story, and I'm quite interested, Enoch, about, we all have it. I've got mine, but I think I want to give Dami the floor. So is there any, like, a job or career horror story from way back? Is there anyone you can share with us today?
So in this particular season of the year, my heart goes out to anyone who's working. And I say so because very often the care homes are, and there's also for the service users as well, because the care homes are usually hit by some bug. They're usually hit by something that happens, winter bug, stomach flu, stomach bug, whatever. And for those who work in care, they understand the real grit of what that is, right? And when the stomach bug hits, everyone's suddenly sick. And guess what? It's the Africans that are left to work in because they need the money, they need the job, their visa is tied to it now. It wasn't then. Their visa is tied to it now, and so they have to turn up. And so there's a lot of, I don't want to paint a really graphic picture of what this actually looks like when stomach bug hits a home, especially when you've got people with dementia and everything else. But it's a tough grind. So without painting the picture of what that is, my heart does go out to the service users and to the people who actually, service that carers themselves or support workers themselves during this particular season of the year.
Right. Wow. That's an eye opener for me. I never knew that.
Yeah, even though you said we don't paint the picture, I am painting a picture in my head.
Yes, I'm already beginning to have an imaginary picture as well.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've never worked in care, but I've met a lot of people that have worked in care, and I've never actually sat to think of the reality behind those doors, and nobody has ever really painted it for me. So it's funny you're mentioning this around, what happens especially around winter time when folks are just falling sick, and then we still need to work. Our people need to work because they've got to pay some school fees or some visa fee or something.
Yeah. I mean, care's rich, right? So when you talk to the service users, they have a well-lived life. So some of them have served in the army. And I got an opportunity to work with not just, I worked in day centers, I worked in retirement homes, I worked with people with substance abuse, I worked with people with violent behaviors. I worked in all sorts as well. So it wasn't just like I was in a care home all the time. You get to hear stories. You hear stories about people that, their aspirations, the things they thought they were going to do in their life, they never managed to, a guy thought he was going to be a musician. He wrote songs, he never actually found the courage to publish his songs. Who knows? That could have been the guy who beat Michael Jackson, but he's here, he never did it. And so you get to see that other side of the conversation. You get to meet people for who they actually are, especially when they're vulnerable as well, because they're relying on you. So it's a very different aspect to life, and you get to see what you also take for granted as well, especially when you see people with severe disabilities as well.
So Dami, I'm a numbers guy. So people are, watching, listening to this, and they're trying to follow, the story chronologically. Chronologically, is that correct? Yeah. It is correct.
So, approved by Dami.
Like, I need to use a big grammar. Right. Okay. So you came to the UK what year?
2007.
So you started, you finished your masters, and then you started working in Aberdeen as a social care person in
2007. I was doing the masters.
Doing masters. Yeah. Right. Okay. And you did that for how long?
I did that for almost 2 years actually. So I
Okay.
did that up to 2009. There was a moment that made me leave.
Right.
There was something that happened. It was an interaction with somebody that made me go. Think it's time to move on.
Okay. And for those 2 years, were you studying throughout that time? You finished your masters, but then you still kept on with the care.
Yes. So I
Okay.
was studying when I started, and I was studying. And when I finished studying, I still continued in care because that was all I even knew at the time. Anyway.
At the time.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, lovely. Thanks very much for that, Dami. So again, I'm just conscious of time here, and I still want to ask some questions. So current day now. So I just want to know. Let's talk about in terms of about your career journey, and at what point would you say your career in the UK started properly?
It's difficult, right? Because most people think about career. Because when I think about career, I think about job, right? And I think about them as two separate things. Because you can have a job and not have a career. And do you know what I mean? So I think of them as two separate things.
True.
So I would say mine started in, I would say officially here 2011 thereabout. Actually, to be perfectly honest, it started before then. I would say 2010. So 2010, I got a job as a quality assurance manager. I was looking after care homes across Scotland. That was the first proper job I got here, and actually, as a result of working in care, was actually how I got that job.
You're still learning us a story. That story of the conversation you had.
Yeah.
That moved you out of care.
Yeah.
So I'm holding that in my pocket, so I'm gonna pull it out later. But I'll let you continue your flow.
Yeah. So that was the first. And then I came in to Glasgow for a doctorate degree in 2010. And while I was doing this, I thought it was going to be really busy because you'd done the masters, and masters was busy. And I started doing the doctorate, and I was like, I have way too much free time. I need to find something else to actually do.
Why do you want to do a PhD?
So I had this weird thing in my head that I was going to have a doctorate degree before I was 25. Like I had this thing in my head. I just had to achieve this for some weird reason, right? And I felt like I had lost track of time. I should have achieved this by now, and I need to get back on it. So it was one of those ones where I started to do it, and also I liked the topic as well at the time. So that was part of the reason for it then.
What was the topic?
Emotional intelligence and its impact in management.
Emotional intelligence.
So I'll mention this.
Yeah.
I'll mention this. So Dami is on LinkedIn. I'm connected to Dami on LinkedIn. And when I read Dami's posts, sort of go away, drink tea or drink something, come back and read it again. Because it's very intelligent.
Deep, right?
It is emotionally intelligent.
Okay.
But genuinely though, like, if you want, interesting conversations, if you want to read content and sort of ideas that will make you think about what you hold as truth and things like that, I think it's good to sort of you're probably feeling a bit embarrassed now. It's good to follow Dami on LinkedIn. I don't know if you're on other social media.
Nah, you've been too kind, but yeah. Thank you.
It's got some really good content on there. So just in there.
Okay. And then going back to the career bit, so you mentioned, I'm doing the timeline now. So you said 2011, the actual career kicked off, and then in care environment still.
No, so in 2011, I moved into financial services. So I worked in insurance for a while.
Right, okay.
And I actually started, so for a lot of the listeners here who are either in contact center or care, guess what, I've done that. So I moved into contact center as well. And I was a top performer for about 20-something months. And I got to a point where I was like, you know what, I've done enough here. I need to actually leave because I've reached that point again where there's nothing else to do here.
Okay.
And I spoke to my manager, and he spoke to the L&D manager, and they said, okay, why don't you consider training? And that's actually how I fell into training.
Wow. Okay.
Which actually explains my career so far. But yeah.
So PhD was 2010.
It was 2010, yeah.
So you started in 2010 and then started working in financial services. So you were doing PhD in financial services.
Yes.
And financial services was full-time?
Full-time, yes.
Wow.
And you're doing PhD on top of that?
Yes.
You're a legend, man.
Listen.
He's a living legend.
For those of you that are just doing uni and complaining, I don't know what you're complaining about.
No, for undergrad, absolutely. For master's degree, I have less sympathy. Well, for undergrad, absolutely, you're full time. You should be focusing on that.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Wow. Okay.
I'll let you.
Okay. So what are your long-term career aspirations?
This is always it's a tough one, because if you asked me this question 10 years ago, I would give you a very different answer. The things I've learned is my career aspirations don't matter as much as I used to think they did, and I'll explain why. So when I was younger, I used to think that I wanted to achieve this. I wanted to be a director. I wanted to be a chief exec. I wanted to own multiple buildings. I had a bunch of wide aspirations at the time. But as I started to achieve individual things with individual organizations, I started to realize I didn't even remember what the actual ask was. So when we were in St. Bank, I don't remember what project we worked on. When we were in whatever company, it seemed like the most important thing at the time. But when it was done, I'm like, okay, I don't remember what that project was. I've moved on. What I did realize as time went on is that I remember the people. I remember the impact of it made on the people that we actually interacted with. I remember jobs that had more impact. I remember care more than I remember the actual banks. I remember working with members of the community. I worked in with the Department of Works and Pensions, and we did this Make It Work program where we actually educated members of the public. We were like fourth generation unemployed. I was going into like Motherwell Football Club, hosting people. I mean, some people didn't even turn up because one of them actually got arrested and went to jail in the middle of the course, right? So we're hosting. I remember those courses. I remember those conversations. I remember the people's names from those courses as well. I remember being passionate about teaching people how to write this CV in those conversations. And you can compare that to like working as a contractor where you're paid a reasonable amount of money and you don't even remember what the project is after you're done. True. So at the end of the day, you kind of go, your career aspiration isn't really that important because nobody talks when you're done. You talk about the impact you had. So it stops. I want to do the best I can because I kind of owe it to my family, I owe it to my employer, I owe it to the people around me to do the best I can while I'm in whatever job it is. So if you ask me, I say the next level is the career aspiration. But in reality, I will achieve that and I'll be thinking of the next level, and the next level, when it's all done, I will remember none of it.
So Sade will be taking you forward, I'll be pulling you back. So I'll pull you back a bit. So you started working in financial services in 2011 while doing your PhD, and that was in customer care.
So in customer care, I started in customer care
for 26 months.
I was there till I was actually in the company till 2014 or 2015. I can't remember.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So just so the listeners know, I ran into you, or we met in must have been 2016.
Yes.
Yeah. So myself and Dami and Sade as well, we've got a mutual friend, Remy, and Remy invited some of us, his friends, for a birthday party in the Lake District.
Yes. Okay.
And that was where I met you. And I remember then you said you were working within financial services. You were working as a consultant.
Yes.
You were working in, what was that big project that was popular then?
Is it
people that were getting money back?
Okay.
Oh no, I wasn't in PPI. So
PPI.
I wasn't in PPI then. No.
Okay.
So when I was a consultant, I was still in learning and development organization. But I wasn't in PPI. I was trying to get into PPI. I
always thought you were in PPI, so it's good to have this conversation.
No. I was trying to get into PPI. I wasn't in PPI then.
Right. Okay. So, and were you always with the same bank from 2011 all the way to that point, or did you move around?
So the financial services was actually an insurance company. And then I moved to, actually I'm getting my dates wrong. I moved to Sainsbury's Bank, I think. And then after Sainsbury's Bank, I think I worked in a local council for a bit. And then I was in my own consultancy as normal, and then I ran for, I think it was University of Edinburgh, and then Scottish Social Services Council, and then I think it was Monarch, and then JP Morgan, I think so. I think that's kind of, if I remember correctly.
Okay, that's
so it's been a few years.
It's been a while. So we we'll still continue asking Dami some questions around how he's gotten from where he is now in the story to becoming a vice president at JP Morgan and Chase Co. Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Yep. But before then, before we continue, let me remind our listeners on how they can get in touch with their comments or contribution. Want to hear from you. Join in the conversation. You can do this by calling the studio directly on 0141 530-2787, or you can send us a WhatsApp message or voice note on 074-5990-6822. And if you're on social media, you can also message us on Facebook at Jambo Radio Scotland, on Twitter at Jambo Radio 1, and on Instagram at Jambo Radio .Scotland. You can also email us at info@jamboradio.co.uk. So back to you, Dami, and again following on that sort of chronological story, because the reason why we invited you was just think your story is pretty inspirational, and hopefully it will inspire a lot of people that are where you've been. So you've done customer care, you've done social care, and you've done a lot of other jobs that have gotten you to where you are today.
I've done dishwashing.
You've done dishwashing,
really?
Perfect.
I've done bartender. Like,
But
the list is long.
there you go.
Kitchen staff. Like,
That's good. It's good because the truth is, there are a lot of people doing those jobs now, and they've not met people like you. So they're stuck there and they're thinking there's no way out. But then when they hear stories like yours, stories like mine, they start thinking, okay, maybe there's a way out. Maybe I can walk my way out of here and get into this and get into that and get to wherever it is I'm going, wherever it is they want to go. So, and that's why this story is really powerful. That's why we need to share this story around. You can start from here, and with a bit of will and a bit of willpower, hard work. Well, maybe not hard work. Meeting the right people. And speaking of meeting the right people, in everything you've shared, you've not mentioned meeting someone that then did something for you. So has it just been so?
Yeah, so my story isn't one of, somebody helped me to get this job or somebody helped me. My story is one of hustle and, like I said, a level of naivety and feeling like you can achieve anything.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a level of that. But there's also of what's in front of you. And sometimes you need the world to remind you, like, nothing hits as hard as life. Nothing. And when I talk about the story about how I made the decision to leave care, care was comfortable. I knew what it was. I knew what the job was. There was salary coming in. There was money coming in. I could pay rent. I could eat. I could chill. Right. So you need to almost embrace being uncomfortable. And it happened when I met a guy, and he doesn't even know he did this, right? And he was talking to me, and we were talking about family, and I was asking about his kids, and he was excited about it. And then he asked me what uni I went to. I was like, I went to University of Aberdeen. He was like, oh, I went there too. We're both working a shift in Kent. He was like, oh, I went there too as well. Indian fellow. I was like, I went there too as well. I was like, great, fantastic. When did you finish? I thought maybe he just finished, right? His master's, there's different ages in masters. And he was like, oh, he finished 6 or 7 years ago.
Whoa.
And I was like, wait, what?
It's like, oh, I finished 6 or 7 years ago. And I was like, oh, okay, this was a temp job to me. Right?
Maybe his master's was in social care.
No, he did an MBA. He did the same course.
Oh, okay.
He did the same course. So I was like,
Wow.
I was like, no, this is meant to be a temp job. This is until I find my feet. This is what but you know what? It's been a year now. I've been finding my feet for a year now. Like, what's going on here? So I remember calling my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, to say, look, I think we need to make a decision because it's not working in Aberdeen. We need to move to Edinburgh. We don't know anybody. We don't know a single place. I will drive to Edinburgh and look for a place to rent. I'll figure this out and I'll come back and get stuff. But we need to leave. But being realistic, you don't just lift up and first month and second month's deposit. So what we say is, look, for the next couple of months, man, we are going hungry. Well, when I say hungry, we're everything's tight. Everything is smart price or whatever budget price you can find. But we're going to make this decision so that we can relocate and at least have enough to pay our rent for the next 6 months in case nothing happens.
Yeah.
Right. So at least we'll have a roof. My figure out food, but we'll have a roof over our head.
You could have called me then. I had a spare room back in the days.
Did you?
I was lounging. What year was this?
This was like 2000. This was 2010 actually. This was just.
I was already lounging in Edinburgh. I had a spare room. You could have.
That's actually how I met Remy as well. Because when he came in, and Remy was in my. Because I gave him my room for a couple of months.
No way.
Yeah, that's how we met Remy. He was actually living with me for a couple of months.
I thought it was gonna be the other way around.
No, so he was living with me for a couple of months. There's a whole story there. It's a whole different story there. Which I'll get permission from him to share that. But yeah, so that was part of the conversation about, like, so he made us make that decision to go. you know, I saw the future through his lens, and I didn't blame him. I didn't think like there's something like disreputable from working in care. It's just I understood how he ended up there, because when he started, he had his own aspirations, he had his own dreams, and then he had kids. And then the kids started to come 1, 2, 3, 4, and then he was like,
He had 4 kids.
Yeah, so it was like,
Legend.
I can't leave.
Wow.
So I felt for him, because he was like, he can't leave because he has to feed his family.
There's
he
a
has
lot
to
going
pay
on.
rent. He can't just make the decision I need. So I understood there yet. So before I get there, I've got the freedom to make this choice.
So did you go and tell the girlfriend, like, we're not having kids, we need to get out of Aberdeen, like, ASAP?
I mean, my mother would have killed me if I got kids anyways.
Okay, so sorry if I missed something. So when you decided you needed to make that change, right? So you were looking for something while you still kept your care job. Is that the case?
Oh no, I relocated. I left Aberdeen and moved to Edinburgh. So complete relocation.
Wow. So you literally stopped and was probably not working for a couple of months?
I was unemployed until I had like, I don't know, £2 something left in my account. I
Wow.
was completely
You
unemployed.
banked on yourself.
Wow.
Yeah,
Then how did you... Oh, wow. Wow, that's an interesting story. Very interesting. Okay. All right.
And it takes a lot of courage to do that. It takes that courage where, you know, I've done this before, but I know myself. I know I can pull this through. But not everybody has that courage where you can...
I think courage and a bit of planning as well. Because when I was a student, I knew I didn't want to do plate waiting for so long, because I was serving club owners at the stadium when they come to watch the football matches and everything. It was good because they get to give us food at the, you know, we get our breaks and, you know, good food. But then I knew I wasn't going to be there for a long time, and I knew I needed to be housed before getting married or having kids or whatever. So I'm not saying there's a rule to these things, but I think there's still a bit of planning there, because it gets more difficult when you start having kids and everything. So if you can probably plan such that, you know, by this time I want to be here, God help me, you know, and you know, I feel that I don't want to be here longer than 2 years, for example. By then I feel like I'll be done with school and I'll be thinking of something else. So I don't know if you get what I mean. I think some people are just stuck there and they keep doing it. And like Dami said, you're very correct. It brings in the money. And it's, again, the people you surround yourself with. Everyone is doing it. And why should you feel special to leave them behind and go look for other things? But it shouldn't be that way. I believe you should still not lose focus on what you want and just have a timeline, basically. A bit of planning.
Yeah, agreed.
I believe,
Agreed.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, like, so there are people along the way that kind of will tilt you in the right direction without knowing they've done so. So, for example, going into contracting, I met Remy by chance, like absolute chance. He was in McDonald's, about to buy something from McDonald's. Somebody, a mutual friend, saw him. I was like, oh, there's another black person here. Hey, hello. And he was like, oh yeah, I'm brand new in Edinburgh, and here's, you know, and that was how the conversation came. She was like, oh, I have this friend, Remy. I met him. He's having some challenges. I'd never met this guy before. I was like, oh, he's having some challenges. He's looking for a place to stay. I'm like, oh, okay, let him come here. Like, it was just random like that, right? And then I met Remy, and Remy was a contractor. He was earning good money. I was like, wait, what is contracting exactly? Right.
So for our listeners, what is contracting?
So contracting in this particular scenario he's an independent employee. So he has his own company and he's running a consulting business of sorts. In his own particular case, I think, I can't remember what Remy actually does.
He's an accountant.
He's an accountant now, but for his role then, I don't know if he was doing accounting, but anyway, so you run your own limited company and you consult for like proper clients. So for example, for me, I worked with University of Edinburgh and I consulted for them for like 2 years. And I worked with the Scottish Social Services Council. I did that for them for a bit. But even when I was at University of Edinburgh, I got side asks from like, you know, Sheffield Hallam University, from the British Medical Association. I actually make fun of University of Edinburgh because they turned me down for a PhD and then they hired me as a consultant after.
So instead of you giving them money, you took money off them.
I make fun of them because I was like, no, you see?
You see me now.
See, I had potential then, you just didn't see it. But yeah.
Okay, all right.
So it sounds then, and this is something I believe, like using that Remy story, and that was what I was asking, did nobody on the journey say something to you, or advise you, or support you? Because I think it's really important, right? The people you surround yourself with. well, this is my belief. I don't know what you Sade
Yeah, that was what I
and
was saying earlier.
and then I think,
people
yeah,
people
because
you
it
have
could just
around you.
be someone says something that to them is just given, but you've
Yeah.
never heard it before, and it blows your mind, and you think, oh, really? And that can totally change the trajectory of your
Yeah.
life, just
Absolutely.
that word. But then to get that word, you need to be around, and it could be by chance, like in your case, you met Remy by chance, and that happened. Or what I tell people is, you need to be intentional around the people you surround
Exactly.
yourself, or the people you let you keep around
In your
yourself.
world, yeah.
You need to intentionally put that you think, you know what, these people are ahead of me on the journey, so I'm just gonna nick everything they've done.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that 100% actually, because again, Remy was ahead on the journey anyway. And even though he's not someone who's like sat down and said, oh, by the way, you need to become a consultant, we never had that conversation. He's been someone that, you know, is someone I go to for advice, like, oh, how do you set up a company? Like, let's start with that. How do we make sure, you know, the police don't show up my daughter, I'm avoiding taxes, right? Right? How do you make sure we declare everything? So we've been through that whole process with Remy, and I think that's been a good thing as well. That's been a good exercise for me.
Okay.
And there's been multiple people along the way as well that, and actually Black Professionals Scotland, or what was Edinburgh Professionals then at the time, actually has had an impact as well. And the reason why I'm saying so is because I remember the conversation was very different in Aberdeen than what was happening in Edinburgh. So in Aberdeen, the whole conversation was care. When it came to Edinburgh, I remember one of the sessions I came on, there was a guy I think you guys had on, I can't remember his name right now. He was talking about how to save £1 million for your kid by the time he's 18. Something like that.
That is Taka.
I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
I'm here looking.
Did you used to come to EBP?
No, I attended this particular one. I was like, wait, what? These people are talking about saving £1 million for your kid. I was like, these guys are talking to me about how, you know, you can become a care supervisor. What are we talking about? It's like, this is not the same conversation.
conversation is different,
This is the same people.
Yeah.
We all came here because with that aspiration. Then now it's different, because now people actually do come in for care, but then that wasn't the case.
That wasn't. Mine was back in 2012, and yeah, that wasn't.
So
Okay, so
we are going to take a break, and we'll go for a music break, and we will be playing My G by Kiss Daniel. Well, that was My G by Kiss Daniel, and I've got my G here with me.
so I'm not your G now.
I've got my G.
Okay.
Don't let people say I'm sexist.
Okay.
Don't
I'm
start.
like, I feel like, anyways.
Don't
That's
start trouble. I've got my G's here with me, because the title says my G. So Dami, so thanks for sharing everything so far. But as I said, you're now a VP and just one level down from director at JP Morgan. And for those that don't know much about JP Morgan, do you want to, just so we paint the picture of how big the company or the bank is, do you want to paint a picture for us? Tell us a bit about JP Morgan.
Yeah, sure. I mean, JP Morgan is one of the largest banks in the world.
Give us numbers.
You're putting him on the spot now.
So
on.
I can't give you an official number. It's just, I'll say one of the top 5 largest banks in the world.
Okay.
We've got employees. We have over 300,000 or close to 300,000 employees. All this is publicly available information. We're in about 100 plus locations. We are a massive bank in the US. We've heard of Chase. We've launched a digital bank here in the UK, which is doing amazingly well. By the way, you go grab yourself a Chase account, just put that out there. We're digital. We've got a digital bank in the UK. We're moving to other locations hopefully soon, and you'll hear more as time goes on as well. So we're a massive bank. We deal in all
Sorry,
sorts.
I want, because I'm in financial services as well. So because I'm an accountant within financial services, so we see some ridiculous numbers that people on the streets don't see. So share some, again, publicly available information. So what's roughly the amount on the balance sheet? Are we talking billions or trillions?
So let's not talk about balance sheet. Let's talk about transactions.
Yeah, okay.
Right? So from a transaction perspective, JP Morgan probably moves something like $1 million a day.
There you go. So that's 11 000 000 000
Okay.
000
Okay.
000. So that's
okay.
12 zeros.
Okay.
So think about that when you go to bed tonight. So that's the amount of money Dami moves daily.
Right. No, please. I still need a job. No, I never said that.
But so you work with these really top, global bank. Yeah. They've got very significant presence in London, in Edinburgh, in Glasgow.
Yeah.
So
and Bournemouth as well in the UK.
And Bournemouth here. So tell us your journey into JP Morgan, how you got in, how you started, what you were doing when you got in, and where you are now.
Oh, okay. So my journey to JP Morgan was a very wasn't expected, because essentially JP Morgan reached out to me at a time where I had been offered other jobs. Because again, I should probably level set here that for a lot of people looking for a job, when you get your first major career break, that is usually the end of you struggling. That is usually the end of you struggling. And I say this very specifically because most times people don't understand that the journey into your first career sometimes feels like forever. But everybody I've spoken to historically, and I try to do a timeline on this, it hasn't taken up to a year of actually you being intentional about finding the job. It actually hasn't for anybody I know. But when JP Morgan reached out, I had 3 job offers at the time. And so when they reached out and they told me about
Did you give 2 away to maybe your guys?
That would have been good. But no, when they reached out and they tried to offer the role, and at the time my brother had worked in JP Morgan, he'd worked in PwC, he'd worked in quite a number of organizations as well. And what he said to me was like, look, you'll make money, but they will collect the money from you and work. So I was like, okay, I'm not sure I want that, because there's easier ways to make money. I'm one of those people that believes, look, if you want to work hard, life will give you reasons to work hard. You need to learn how to work smart.
Smart, yeah.
And so when they reached out, I was like, I'm not really interested. And then they phoned back again and they're like, oh, here's what the project is. And then we want you to speak to this MD and to tell you about the project, or to this person. And so I eventually spoke to the person. He told me about the project.
So let me pause for there. So I want to pray for someone out there that you get to a point in your career where someone will call you, a company like JP Morgan will call you to offer you a job, and you say no thanks.
No thanks.
I'll sleep on it. You can go away. I pray that happens to you at some point in your career. So I'll let you continue, Dami.
So it sounds a lot more arrogant when you put it that way.
It's not arrogant. It's value, right? It's a value-based system.
So it is actually. So no, but when I did hear about what the project was at the time, which is the digital bank that's now live, I was like, oh yeah, that's definitely the project. Because again, it goes back to that value question where all the other stuff, I'm not going to remember them. I will remember being part of a bank that went live, being part of the actual startup. But the conversation you're having with your grandkids where the Chase advert comes up. I was there when that went live. I was, you know what I mean? Like that was the driver there, because my career, I've been lucky enough my career has gotten to a point where I could think like that. And I was also lucky enough that I actually had options, because it's very different when you have just the one option and there's nothing to think about. So that was the beginning of my journey with JP Morgan, and it's been an exciting one since then. And since then, I used to be in the Edinburgh office, and then there was something else that was going on in a different site, which is in the Glasgow side within the technology hub. And this is something a lot of people don't know. We're a massive tech company as well. So we have something like 65,000 software engineers as an example within the firm. So we're a massive organization, and people don't understand that even in the Glasgow side, there's a tech hub. So there's a lot of tech jobs. Just check online. So whether you're a full stack developer, software engineer, whatever it is you do in tech, just check. There's about 200 plus vacancies right now.
You're going to pay you're going to pay Jambo Radio for this JP Morgan.
I'm just saying, like, I might as well, right? But the point I'm making here is that the variety of what you can do becomes wide as well, because it means that what you realize as you start to develop your career is that your job title stops to matter as much as the skill sets you develop. And so the transition for me changed job titles. But my skill set is what carried me into the different job titles. So if you look across my career, my job title has been different, but my skill set has carried over, because I haven't suddenly become a different person. I haven't gone from being a medical doctor to being a software engineer or something. There's always been some kind of trajectory in that sense.
Okay.
Interesting. And then I'm just a bit curious. So when you got the 3 roles, tied for the 3 rows, first of all. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Because the stories we hear, I don't know about you, Enoch, is that sometimes it's just so hard and people don't know exactly what to do in terms of how to move from, e.g., plate waiting or, working at the bar to start your career. And you'll be surprised. Some people still don't know. They're like, where do I even start? Is it LinkedIn? Do I have to go around with my CVs? And do I have to have different CVs? Like, what skills should I project? Like, coming from your own experience, what did you do at that time?
So for me, I learned the hard way. So when I was looking for a job for my first professional job, I must have applied to over 250 plus jobs and gotten no acceptance or even interview, right?
Okay.
So that's the version of the story that nobody seems to
Exactly.
hear.
I'm happy you're saying this, our listeners can
So
see.
the version they hear is the VP version, right? They don't hear the version of, that refinement and learning from your mistakes. What I also started to learn was I was also a little bit lazy, because it comes to, there has to come a point where you accept what you are as well. Like, you can lie to everybody else, but at least don't lie to yourself, right? And the reason why I say I was being lazy is I did zero research about how you actually conduct and how you actually write a CV, how you do a cover letter, how you do an interview. I didn't understand what the goal was, because the goal is very different at each of those different stages as well. So as an example, when you're writing a CV, the idea behind a CV is, if you put this into position of like dating, right? It's like dressing up. Like, you dress up particularly well because you're trying to attract a mate, right? That's what your CV is. You're trying to attract. That doesn't mean they're going to say they want to be with you. That doesn't that doesn't mean any of those other things. It just means they will listen to you. That's what your CV is. And when I start to conceptualize that and think about it from that perspective, it changed the way I wrote my CV. That I'm just trying to get you attracted enough to call me, right? And focus on that. When I get an interview, then this is like dating, where I'm actually on the date. I already know you like me because you called me. You're not confused about whether I can do the job, otherwise I wouldn't be here. But the next stage here is about getting you to actually, not messing this up, and getting you to actually take it a step further. And so in this particular case, I can then tweak the conversation. I know that you want to get to know me, but you don't want to get to know all of me all at once, right? You don't want to hear every negative thing I've ever done. You want to hear the best version of me at that particular time. It's not a different mindset. It's not a different concept that you can't relate to. And so I'm able to project that in an interview and say, look, this is what you really want to know. This is how I can do the job. And this is my previous evidence as well to do the job. Getting the job is now a different thing, where you're supposed to focus on skills. What I've also seen with a lot of, and I can't say Africans, I can only say Nigerians, is very often we focus on getting the job and not the skills development to actually do the job. It's kind of like focusing on the wedding, but not the actual marriage, right? And so there's multiple layers in that conversation, but that's a much longer conversation.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Dami. Thank you.
So I'm going to ask you something a bit profound. So this question is usually sort of those that have maybe started companies or done something major get these questions, but I'm going to ask you, because I think you are quite a force remembered for.
I've thought about this a lot. I want to be remembered for the people I helped. I want to be remembered by the people I helped. I don't want to be remembered as, I would say this even in the company, right? If it doesn't affect anyone or it doesn't help anyone, what's the point, right? And when it's all said and done, I know this for a fact. I'm not going to, and I've said this many times today, I'm not going to sit back and go, oh yeah, I built a digital. That's the story that my kids will hear the first time. And by the time I say it the second time, they'll be like, oh, grandpa is here again with this story, right? I want to be remembered by the people who have had an impact. And I want to see that impact translated as well. I want them to pay it forward.
That's quite deep.
Thank you. And the final question, I don't know if Sade wants to ask.
Well, for our listeners, because I believe people are listening to what we've been saying, it's been an interesting conversation. I've learned a lot myself. If you were to leave our listeners with, some key advice, what would it be?
So the first advice I would leave you with is you should believe in yourself. And it's really important because there's a level of naivety and self-delusion that comes with that empowers you to actually make a difference. Believe in yourself 100%. The world will tell you no multiple times. There's a naivety that made me go, I'm leaving Aberdeen and I'm going to Edinburgh and I will be successful. Who knew if I would have been? I could have been homeless, right? But believe in yourself even through that. And I think the second part is almost like a counter advice. Is one of the things you get told a lot is you get told don't change anything. I don't think that is true. I think there are aspects of yourself you live in the real world. I think one of the things that has held a lot of people back, and I've seen this in actual interviews, is a lot of our Nigerian folks, because we have really strong accents as well, and we're trying to talk really fast because we're nervous even in an interview. I've seen the interviewers come out and go, I didn't actually understand what he said.
anything.
And you might have all the competence in the world, but guess what? That is something you need to change. You need to pace yourself. You need to, I'm not asking you to put on a British accent, but you need to slow down the way you speak and all that. So I think that changes things.
Okay.
So I think that changes things for people as well. So I would say to people, be willing to listen to advice, but also believe in yourself. But the biggest part for me as well is I also, as I started to go up in my career, and this is advice for later on, I was very sure of what my price is and what cost I will never pay no matter what. And I think this is important as well, that as you get on in your career, you will be faced with people that will try to get you to do certain things. I've had people try to get me to sack the only black person in the team because I'm and I had no reason to. And you have to make a decision at some point in your career that and make that decision before life makes that decision for you. So that would be my last 3 pieces of advice for before you start, while you're doing it, and when you're actually in it.
Fantastic. And one random question, not even question, well, give us an advice that you would like to pass on, give to us for us to pass on to our next guest. You don't know who this person is, just give us an advice.
Whatever you're saying, make sure it has an impact on people that are coming after you.
Okay.
Are you going to remember that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever you're saying, whatever you're doing,
make sure it has an impact on people coming after you.
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect.
All
okay.
Right.
On that note, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dami. Thank you very much, Sade.
Thank you.
Thank me.
Thanks.
And
Thanks.
that it is for this week's folks. Until next time, I've been your host, Enoch and Sade.
Yes.
And thank you very much, Dami.
Lovely.
Thanks for having me.
Lovely to have you on, Dami. Thank you.
Cheers.
On your mobile phone and on all social media platforms, Jambo Radio.